always been a big Rolling Stones pod, 80s Rolling Stones. So start me up.
We're here.
CJ, any comments about the massive wine painting behind you?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah. Why don't you ask him where he is?
I just thought I would spice up the set a little bit. I thought the Rune Divider was getting a little stale.
Yeah, it's good to
I
put
think
a
our
wall
audience,
in some closets.
Yeah, our audience deserves better, I think. So I made the executive decision as producer to switch it up a little bit. Added a doorway and
painted the walls.
Painting.
Yeah.
Where are we at?
The girlfriend's parents.
Oh,
that's right.
What do they think about this?
That's I told them. Do the girlfriend's parents know you're podcasting up in the bedroom with the door closed?
Yeah, they're aware. The door's closed. There is a bit of an echo in here, so slightly. Yeah, they're looking at me right now, I think. But yeah, we're doing it.
They get that painting from Briggs Auction? You guys
probably
at Briggs Auction. Yeah.
There's definitely a Briggs Auction tag on the back of it. That's right.
Anything else, Mike? We got 30 more seconds before. I mean, we don't need to start whenever, but I want to make sure we go through this before we.
Sure. Yeah. Is that a plain white T-shirt or is there a design on there?
This is a Dickies T-shirt.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm traditionally just get like, the cheap, either like Amazon or Walmart, pack of like 5 white T-shirts. Mm-hmm. But when I got my overalls, which I haven't debuted on the pod yet.
No, but we saw them on the internet. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe mid off season I'll bring them in. But I got this with that order because I was like, you need a nice white shirt underneath a pair of overalls.
White shirt. Maybe do an off season pod standing on your couch in your shoes.
Okay, yeah.
I was thinking maybe we could do one once we're through free agency or whatever. You could do one where you do like costume changes, maybe 5 times throughout the pod. Like every time we go to you, you're wearing something different.
Yeah, I like that.
Different pair of overalls, different white T-shirt.
Yeah, I like that.
All right. Now that we've gotten through that, here we go. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS. Brought to you by Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Beds. Get your Big Barker with a Process Pup patch at bigbarker.com/Ricky. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged. And Kinetic Skateboarding. Get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. On the show today, the offseason is saved as the Brooklyn Nets defer their taking of the Sixers' first-round pick and give us draft night. Now, they may end up trading that, but can't be traded before that, so they give the Ricky and Sixers fans draft night everywhere. Made-up trade season has arrived in the mailbag, and we officially offer our support to one of the 2 finals teams and bring someone on to formally accept that support later on in the pod. I did mention Kinetic Skateboarding. Now, I've mentioned the hoodies and T-shirts and stuff like that a lot, but I have not mentioned the shoes a lot. They get sneakers there that they don't get anywhere else. They get these short runs of shoes that only happen in super cool skate shops. Converse, New Balance, Vans, Nike, stuff that you're not going to see anywhere else. I recommend you keep an eye on their Instagram because that's where a lot of it debuts. And then when you go and buy them on the website, use promo code Dave Silver for 9.1% off your first order. Without any further ado, Amos and the chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy doing the pod from his girlfriend's parents' house in front of a painting of wine. That is one Mike Levin.
That isn't me.
No.
That is our friend CJ. And
Yep.
I hope that the parents are watching live as CJ does his job. Speaking of doing his job, I saw someone do their job last night, and it was our friend Amos Lee
Oh, you went to the show?
doing a concert at the Ace Hotel in downtown Los Angeles.
That's awesome. How was the show?
It was delightful. He's great. Someone fainted during the show
That happens all the time during Amos Lee shows.
because of Amos,
Yep.
presumably. They were claustrophobic or something. They were sitting on the aisle. Feels like the least claustrophobic place, whatever. But Amos handled it like a gentleman. People called for a medic. Some doctors came. Amos didn't play while it was happening. Not really a Travis Scott situation. He handled it well. I was proud of him for it. And then everything was okay. And he moved on and played some more delightful songs. And at one point he was shouting people out during the show, people that were there and friends of his or whatever who came to the show or something. And he invited me, which is cool. And I was like, I wonder if he's gonna say something. I wonder if he's gonna sing the Ricky song
Ooh.
at the show. He didn't sing the song, but he did shout me out during the concert, which was very weird. That's never happened to me before.
It's pretty cool, isn't it?
It was pretty cool,
Yep.
and he did it in a Philadelphia accent. And I just can't imagine anyone at that moment knew what the fuck was going on at the show. He's got such a big fan base, devoted fan base for 20 years or so, right? His career has been a long career.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden he's got these beautiful songs, romantic songs, emotional songs. And then he turns on this fucking gross ass hoagie mouth Tony to Tony accent to shout out his cuz Mike. And what a weird thing. So I love him, and that was very cool.
So he sent me a video of him and some guy outside.
He sent me that to you.
Yeah. Did he mention that the guy asked for me and Kyrie?
To be sung?
Yes.
Wow.
He's had me and Kyrie requests at I think 3 different locales that are
Great.
not Philadelphia.
He's just tanking his career for us. We didn't even ask him to do it. He's just willingly doing it himself.
No, maybe he wants it. Maybe 20 years is a lot of time to be doing the same job. Maybe he wants to be
a change.
puppet
anyway,
hoagie
great guy. I
guy.
love him. Great concert.
So wonderful news, and do see it. I saw it in New York at the Beacon Theater. Do see it. He's touring through the summer, and then there will be fall dates too. But it's a great album, and it's worth seeing him on tour. My brother and I are going to go see it at Red Rocks in Colorado in August. I have not been there for a show yet, and I'm excited to see it again. So yeah. So huge news today. Apparently the deadline was 5 p.m. We knew it was June 1st. It was 5 p.m. for I was going to say New Jersey Nets, but the Brooklyn Nets to decide whether they would take the Sixers first round pick this year or defer to next year. The good news for us is that it defers to next year, meaning that the Sixers will make a selection in the first round of the 2022 draft. They can then go and trade it. The, I guess, sort of negative here, is that since that locks in, the Sixers can't trade a future first now.
Yeah.
They have their 23, 25, and 27 promised away.
Yeah.
And because of that NBA rule, you can't trade in consecutive years. So now all you need is a first round pick. So if they got a first round pick back in any of those years, they could trade theirs away. They just need a first round pick.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, and the 2023 one is the only one that's unprotected. So I think this is ultimately the right result for both teams. Brooklyn, the 23rd overall pick doesn't do much for them. They have young guys that they just drafted that are, pretty good. So I think having a pick in their back pocket that they can trade later for more established help is probably more beneficial to them. And for the Sixers, they need help right now, whether that's making a selection of a guy who can step in right now and play, ninth man minutes. That'd be great. Or trading it with a Danny or a Tobias or something like that to get the trade that they want. how depressing is it that months after we get James Harden,
we're like, yeah, we get
deciding, Brooklyn saying like deferring a selection is like this is the best news of the offseason. This is where some life has been breathed into this monstrous situation. But yeah, I mean the Sixers we're going to be talking about the draft for the next couple weeks, but the Sixers need help now. They have limited ways to get it, and one of the ways they can get it is by I don't think they're going to make the pick. I think they're probably going to trade it with something, but like just drafting a slightly older, ready to contribute player right now would be that's very necessary. And you see teams do that all the time. In last year's draft, Ayo Dosunmu, Herb Jones, plenty of guys. Grant Williams is ready to play. There's so many guys. It's not hard to draft a role player. You take swings on guys like Jaden Springer was a bigger swing because he's so young and he was talented and performed well at Tennessee, but everybody knew he was on the raw side, so it wouldn't be a performing right away situation. But it's not hard to find those kinds of players that can step in and be a playable role player and capitalize on the fact that the contract is cheap, especially in the first round, and the fact that they're still fucking athletic and haven't slowed down to a crawl like most of the Sixers' current roster has.
Two things. First of all, you mentioned breathing life into this. It's almost as if it's like in Seven, where the guy kept the people alive just long enough to torture them more. Breathing life for what purpose, I think, is the real answer there. The other thing, you say that a lot. I think I would disagree that it's easy to draft.
It is
a role player.
It straight up is. It's hard to draft stars. It really is very hard to draft stars. I wouldn't say that I'm good at like thinking of who's going to become like a top 15, 20 player in the league outside of the top, two spots or whatever. But it's easy to draft role players. It is.
Nah. I don't think it is.
It is. Like you can see it's not like you're trying to like finding talent. You're not like looking into like preschools and going like who's good. You're watching them play like in a ton of different tournaments and leagues, whether it's European or here in college, and playing good and see their growth from year to year. In high school, these guys are scouted a lot. It's just not hard. People just overthink it and try to find somebody. Like it's the benefit of being the Sixers or the Nuggets or the Grizzlies or teams that have like established number one options is that you're not looking for another number one option. You really just, you set your expectations to, we're just going to hit like a single or a double here. And like you can take swings. I'm not against taking swings in targeted moments, but the Sixers really right now desperately need a guy who can come in and play like decent two-way basketball right away and show some pop and breathe some life into this team because they've just been so slow and unathletic for a while, and they really desperately need it, and they're capable of doing it. Maybe they think that guy is better off in a trade with a veteran, that they can get rid of Danny's contract and find whatever it is. That's entirely possible, but there will be a number of like 10 to 12 year NBA careers that are going to happen in the 20s of this draft, and they could find one if they wanted to.
I still think it's a little bit harder than you make it out to be.
It isn't. It just isn't.
But so many, I don't know. I don't know why I'm chasing. It isn't.
Look at the Matisse draft.
But look at Matisse. He stinks.
Yeah, because he's a one-way player, and you were hoping, but he's still like an NBA rotation player. That's a rotation player. That's a guy who could come in right away and play some role. He's not. I'm not saying he's a star. I'm not saying he should even be a starter. But you can find guys who can help in a bunch of ways right now.
I like how, and then I'll move on, I promise. I like how your reasoning for why it is possible is just your description of the draft process. You watch these guys.
It is. You do watch them. It's not hard. I think teams overthink it and want to like go for a home run and take the big swing.
That's
a lot
possible.
of time, which sometimes it's right. Sometimes like drafting Zaire Williams is like a thing that pays off. That was an absolute dice roll, and it seems like that's going to come out good for Memphis. But sometimes you're just like, oh, we're just going to draft the guy who was good in college, who will be good, like Chris Duarte. We're just going to go. Duarte was good at Oregon, and he comes in and is the exact same thing at Indiana. Like it's just really, it's not. It's sometimes it's as simple as that. Finding like your best player, that's really difficult. That's you got to get lucky, and you got to hit either at the top of the draft or a Jokic type, Giannis type, like crazy luck coincidence. But other than that, you can find these guys. They're around. We've seen them. They're not mysteries.
Big Barker is a long trusted sponsor of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. They are because, and the reason we partner with Big Barker is because it's a great product. Big Barker is the only real dog bed on the market, the only real dog bed proven by a study at Penn Vet to improve your dog's health, improve joint function, and reduce pain severity, reduce joint stiffness, improvement in gait, improvement in quality of life, all proven by Penn Vet. Go to bigbarker.com/Ricky, bigbarker.com/Ricky. That's where you get your Big Barker dog bed with the Process Pup patches. You send us a photo of your dog on the bed, and we put them in the Process Pup gallery. And when I say that Process Pup gallery, you should go look at that on our website, because when you see the dogs laying on the bed, you see the difference in the bed. When you see, you're scrolling through Instagram and you see all these dog beds, you see they look like these big plush, like sort of pillow looking things, but that's not what you want to sleep on. That's fine for a pillow. It's not fine for a mattress. You need support for your dog. And that's why Rebel sleeps on a Big Barker. Two separate Big Barkers in different parts of the house. Again, go to bigbarker.com/Ricky. This thing, arthritis, joints, it's really important in dogs just like it is in people, especially dogs over 50 pounds. Up to 80% of them develop arthritis as they age. I can't endorse them enough, and super durable, as proven by the guarantee I'll tell you about later. And looks real nice too. It comes in all different colors, with the headrest, without the headrest, for all different sizes. 10-year warranty. The foam doesn't flatten or they replace it for free. 1 year at-home trial. Try it for a full year. If you don't like it, if your dog doesn't like it, they'll give you full refund and they'll pay for shipping. And it's handmade in the USA. Big Barker dog beds.
Woof woof.
A quick note to our listeners, Ben and Lee, along with Jane, they a very early Process Pup, Libby, crossed the Rainbow Bridge and left her family this week. And she loved her Big Barker as well, and was just a super loyal dog. Was a rescue, which I love, of course. She was named Liberty when she was adopted, and they ended up calling her Libby. So we send love to Ben and Lee and Jane, and we thank you. And that's all. Hope you have tons and tons of great memories of Libby, as I'm sure you do. I would say that we kick off the mailbag. Is there anything else? A couple people mentioned, just Sixers news wise, a couple people mentioned there was a story from Adrian Wojnarowski about Quinn Snyder and saying that could be a possible landing spot for Doc Rivers. I don't remember the Danny Ainge Doc Rivers thing ending particularly well, though I suppose it's possible for him to go there. I just can't imagine Doc Rivers going to Utah for the twilight of his career.
Need a golf course correspondent to let us know what it's like over there.
What the golf is like in Utah?
Got it. First thing first.
Yeah.
We have the names of the owners of restaurants that we could get to Doc and see if he can familiarize himself with that.
Mm-hmm.
Quinn Snyder would be a really interesting choice. He's visually a total psycho.
He does look like a psycho,
which is very fun. I think he's a good coach. I think that Utah's limitations were more personnel based than coaching based, but I'm sure Utah fans would probably say that about the Sixers also. So I'd be intrigued. I don't know what that would be like if it's a trade situation or a quit. I don't know, but he's a good coach for sure.
Well, I think it would be more about, I don't think we would need to take Quinn Snyder in that situation, right?
Maybe
it's more just about getting Doc to Utah. So. Maybe.
I like him though. I was thinking, I saw, there was that report about the Phillies in the, I forget, it might have been the Inquirer or the Athletic, where it was like all the players kind of like looking around being like, all of our family members are telling us that we don't look like we're having any fun.
Oh, that was, yeah.
And we're not really trying that hard. And we keep finding very colorful ways to lose. And they're doing that right now.
Are they losing? They were up 1-0. Oh, okay.
No, they're losing. And it's just like, and the similarities between Joe Girardi and Doc Rivers are stunning levels.
Joe Girardi does not seem like he gives a shit at
really
all.
Doesn't seem like he gives a shit at all. But I tend to think that this lands on the players. Both of us usually agree about like the role of a coach in professional sports.
Yep.
Maybe football's different because
football
players seem to like.
They want to
really-
be coached.
They seem to really give a fuck about coaching, whereas baseball players and basketball players maybe don't as much. Maybe it's just like the sort of culture around the sport or whatever. I don't know. It's more of like a disciplinary sport. That part kind of is a weird part of football. But anyway, I think about like how hard guys play is more of just like that's what a player is. I don't think it would have mattered depending on, who Pat Beverly's coach is or who Chase Utley's coach was. Like, they're going to play that way no matter what. But it is stark to watch how some teams play, whether it's baseball or basketball, and then look at the Phillies and see how like lackadaisical and sluggish and dumb that they play, and look at the way the Sixers played, like not getting after loose balls, not going after every rebound, and then you're looking at like the way that Miami and Boston went down the wire, and they, we should talk about the Boston game, but just I do wonder like how much of that is coaching, how much of that is like I respect the coach that's telling me what to do. Ime Udoka recently played in the NBA, like instilled that in them. They were receptive to it eventually. Like, how much does it matter? I don't know. I really don't know.
Ime Udoka recently also was a coach with the Sixers.
Sure,
Yeah.
him
Like-
and then Monty Williams before that.
Yeah.
Just get into the finals.
Yeah.
Out with the Sixers.
No biggie. I think coaching has something to do with it. I think a lot of it is, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Confirmation bias. Like when a team wins, they have those traits, but I think it's.
You mean as far as how they're covered, or what they then are willing to do on the floor?
I think the teams that are willing to do that on the floor typically win a lot. So it's sort of like a chicken and the egg thing, right? Like if the Sixers, I don't know, like better teams do that, right?
But the Sixers were the number 1 seed in the East last year, and they were there this year.
Let me throw this out there.
Okay.
So the Sixers, Tobias Harris prior to Doc Rivers was not a loose ball guy, right? Never been a loose ball guy. James Harden, not a loose ball guy.
Mm-hmm.
Joel Embiid, a loose ball guy, but certainly prone to fits of mopiness pre Doc Rivers as well.
Yeah, and plays hard, but relies, I think, more, especially on just his intelligence rather than he's gonna like out jump somebody or like out physicality somebody, especially on those kinds of things. He does it on the offensive end, but not quite as much. Like when it's just like a ball in the air type thing.
I sort of think the Sixers are just made up of players who are not that.
No, I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
I do think a certain kind of coach can inspire that sort of thing, but I also think it's like more about playing for each other and the sort of like the culture of picking up where another player needs to be picked up, or sort of covering for that person. I think that part of it comes from coaching, but maybe a little bit less of the, hey, everybody, try, like the coaching that we see in timeouts on TV. I think that's probably less of it.
Those are all very valid. I think I look at like a guy like George Niang, who I think is a guy that will get in the muck and be physical and dive for a ball, those kinds of things, which Joel is also and Maxey is also. But I do think it is primarily what we've said all year, is that the way that Darryl built this team, with whatever excuse he has, it's just like a collection of guys who are not that strong, not that fast, not that athletic.
Mm-hmm.
And the popular term, they just don't have that dog in them. So that is, that will be a focus going into draft coverage of finding guys who have that dog in them. So
it means I have to start watching YouTube.
You do. Do you want me to give you a couple? We always do this thing where I'll say guys and you're like, I haven't looked at them. Do you want me to like give you mine ahead of time?
Yes.
So that you can have a couple.
Yes.
I'll give you an area. It'll be like a loose, like, here's who I'm thinking, and then I'll arrange them in that way. But I'll give you a couple that you should watch so you're familiar.
Yeah, I do my best, but some of the guys you have, I just don't have takes on. So the hard to stomach YouTube comment of the week kicks off our made up trade stuff. This comes from Nice and Flowy MMA. Toby and Shake for Lauri Markkanen, Isaac Okoro, and Chetty Osman. Lauri is a better shooter and rebounder and has more size than Toby. The only issue I have is he misses a lot of games. Okoro is a raw athlete, but would help with an athletic deficit. Chetty would be a decent wing shooter off the bench. I just can't figure out why the Cavs would do this.
Yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that Tobias is the best player in that trade. And they would have and Shake as a nice sort of the same thing that he is here as a bench guard to back up the starter. He's more of him and Garland are more similar change of pace vibe than Maxi's more of just a straight line guy for now. It's interesting. Markkanen had a good year last year, but has been disappointing prior to that. Okoro is similar to Matisse in that he plays hard defensively. Okoro is more physical than Matisse. He's a better ball handler than Matisse, but he also can't shoot right now. And arguably, is he the kind of like Avery Bradley type defender where he looks like he's playing good defense, but actually isn't in that sense? Like a lot of action, but he hasn't quite translated as much. But I do believe in him eventually getting there. And Chetty is like a really weird player in that he has stretches where he like plays really well and then seems to be like getting like 3 minutes a game sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I assume that is, you don't know unless you're really watching a ton of him, but from what I've seen, it seems mostly defensively. He's pretty big body. He can shoot. He can make a couple things happen. He's a solid player. I wouldn't mind. He'd definitely be an improvement on the bench this season, but I think it would be a fine trade. I think it's a fine trade, but I think that Tobias, Cleveland might not do it just because the thing with Lowry is that even though he's big and they play big with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, like Lowry shoots right away off the catch, and Tobias is will at least tighten the floor a little bit, even if he is the guy that he was the past like month or two with the Sixers. So I think Lowry's probably a better fit, even if Tobias is maybe the better player overall. It's an interesting trade. It's interesting.
The Lorenzo Brown mailbag, rights to Ricky Sanchez at gmail.com. Send us one basketball, one non-basketball question. This comes from Deal. Really disappointed to hear these Thybulle trade rumors. Did everybody forget that he was shooting 40% from three after the Harden trade? That shows he has potential. Why do you trade him at his lowest value after the COVID situation? I say you keep him. If he becomes a 3-and-D guy, he could be a key piece for our rotation for years to come. I don't want to see Thybulle guard one of our guys because we gave up on him too soon.
No, I mean, that's a totally fair thought. He is absolutely at the lowest point of his value since he was like a sophomore in college. And Daryl doesn't often trade those guys when they're at the lowest point of their value, aside from, I guess, Ben, who he got the guy he wanted to anyway. Who
was also at maybe the lowest point of his value.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
No, I mean Harden.
Yeah. But with Matisse, it's like, it's not just that, it's a volume thing. Like the volume of shots that he takes, he is uncomfortable taking them. I think and have been calling for him to be empowered to take as many of those. You saw Grant Williams in the second round, I believe, of the playoffs when he took like 17 threes. Grant Williams missed like the first like 20 some shots, 3-pointers of his career. He was like up and down over the season, but like you just got to keep shooting and you shoot your way into like feeling comfortable with it. Difference is Grant Williams is a much smarter offensive player, a much more capable offensive player, and has better touch than Matisse does, and always did from the mid-range especially. And it's just taken him some time to like, build out his range a little bit. But you need Matisse to be that kind of player where he can take those shots so that if he makes 2 in a row in the playoffs, then all of a sudden they do have to cover him. But if he makes 1, they're still not going to. If he's still like hesitant to do it, then they're not going to. He still treats it like a safety valve and like a basically last case scenario and so the players on the team. So it's like whether you're shooting 30% or 39% from 3, that's like the difference of like 2 makes over like a playoff series. It's just not that much of a difference. So he just needs to become more confident as a shooter overall and develop like some dribble drive game, some like cutting game. The fact that like he's had to, like he could go to, say, I mean, Golden State for one, or like Minnesota or something with like where this floor is spread, and he can go just be like cut guy where they're throwing him like, high post passes underneath and throwing him lobs and stuff where he can't do that the way that like Gary Payton II is used. Although he's obviously, again, a better ball handler than Matisse. But there's places where he could be more helpful than Philadelphia. But I understand that it's right now it's trading him at the lowest point of his value. So and they need him with Danny out. So it's just not they're not in a good spot.
Well, the point you made about his shooting is you could probably find a lot of, not a lot, but a few 15-game stretches during his career where he shot 40% from three.
Totally.
Like,
there's been stretches.
And this is something that AU falls for constantly. Like, is when he goes two of three from three for one game, he'll go, I don't know if this is a trend or not. And I'll be like, hey, it's 2 of 3 during one game is not a trend. Non-basketball question, Mike too, if you want. I have a Whippet, stumbled into my life, and I love my dog. A Whippet is a kind of dog. Looks sort of like a smaller greyhound. What are your favorite other animals? Long term, I want a couple chickens, ducks, maybe a sheep on the farm. I'll probably be lazy and keep reusing this one. You have any other favorite animals?
Not as pets so much, although there has been 1 or 2 cats that I've liked very much.
Mm-hmm.
I like a goat, but not as a pet.
Mm-hmm.
I like a horse.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing against a horse.
I loved my cat, and I love cats. Rest in peace, Alabama. Mentioned chickens. Craig Carton, who I work with, now has 7 chickens to lay eggs. I do not want any chickens. A goat's fine. I'm really a cat and dog guy. I'm less of an animal guy, even though I'm a vegan, and more of a pet guy. For me personally, for my life. I like the classic pets. And don't like reptiles, personally, at all. Not a reptile guy. Like one Robert Covington. This comes from
the other thing. Just sorry about the finishing Matisse. Like he also, as we've said, like he just needs to be a better defender. Like he has not been as much of a lockdown defender as his reputation has suggested. The fact that he finished second team all defense, like it's just wrong. Like he should not have done that.
No.
If you're like part of defense is being able to like stay on the floor. And I'm not gonna get baited into an availability argument here, but like
I'm not doing it. I agree with you.
His offense wasn't good enough to stay on the floor, and his defense wasn't good enough to make up for his offense.
No,
and so he's just got to improve that. He's got to become. I understand going into this offseason going like we're not just going to trade Matisse just to trade Matisse, especially with Danny hurt, but he's got to get a lot better at every single aspect of basketball. And he didn't get drafted when he was young. He played 4 years at Washington. Like, it's just you're sort of running out of time. And I'm as scared as other people of the idea of him figuring it out on another team and they're just being like, why did they trade him? Why didn't it work out here? But like, it's on him to improve and actually put the work in and stop vlogging. And
he played 4 years of college and 3 years in the pros now. Like there's a lot of
it's time. Now or never. I also think Shake, going back to Shake, I do think Shake people keep saying this, he had a tough year injury-wise, he had COVID, he was coming hot after training camp and had like an ankle thing, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
He hasn't looked right in like 3 years.
But he's had flashes, he's had moments. I think like Shake to me, if Harden stays, Shake is really like a very nice third guard that was perfectly fine. I'm perfectly fine with him being the 8th guy on this roster. They just need other more like fast and athletic guys to sort of supplement because you can't just have it's the whole problem. It's been all of them, Korkmaz and Shake and Matisse who can't do much and Danny who can't move anymore. Like we need more infusion. Otherwise everybody looks worse.
So this comes from Josh. Then we'll get to our guest who will either accept or deny our support for the NBA Finals. This comes from Josh. This is just an unhinged email, and I feel like he needs our help. He says in the subject line, tell AU that oysters are fucking gross. I actually second that. So, hello, my fellow sufferer. I'm gonna, even though he puts his full name in this, I'm not gonna read that. My name is Josh. lived in Kennett Square for about 10 years, where I was lucky enough to have parents that funded my obsession with basketball with Sixers season tickets and Sixers summer camp. I've been listening to the show for a while now. I haven't listened since the Toronto series, really because I'm just a depressed human being. I'm just kind of here to vent and maybe ask a question, tell a story, who knows. My wife is divorcing me. We have been married for a year on June 19th. COVID lasted longer than my marriage. Pretty wild, eh? Anywho, we're having a baby boy on July 17th. I'm pretty excited, scared, and nervous at the same time. My current wife, future ex-wife, has this whole outfit planned out for our son once he gets here. I want a different outfit with my own photos, something Sixers related that only somebody who knows basketball would understand. Everything online looks like it was printed by Martha on her circuit, and the Sixers store, well, it just sucks ass. They give no fucks about baby apparel. This is where you come in. Spike and Mike, help a man out with some cool RTRS onesie gear so I can deck my baby out when he's fresh out of the oven.
Tough. Tough collection of words there.
I'm going to get this made for him. We don't do one-offs, but I'm doing a one-off for him, right? I mean,
Great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Baby apparel for sure.
So we'll get to the second part of the email, the non-basketball question. Like I mentioned earlier, my parents were very stupid and nice and bought season tickets as a birthday present for me for multiple years. Don't worry, listeners. 2007 hit and my parents went flat broke and I didn't see a birthday present again for a long time. I'm not a spoiled brat. Being a season ticket holder, I remember you could come to shoot around and usually get players' autographs, take pictures. Hell, we even toured the locker room. I was able to stick my hand in Keith Van Horn's shoe. It was the size of my arm. Like, what the fuck? Billy King was GM at the time, so while shoot around was going on, he would come out and say hey to the people and talk. He gave some pep talk about being a player, and I could be one if I tried. I'm 5'9". I had no chance. My mom was pretty smoking hot blonde at the time. 5 minutes go by with me just staring at Eric Snow down, begging him to score at least 10 points that game, and an usher came up to us and gave my mom an envelope followed by, "This is a gift from Billy King." After opening the envelope, to my surprise, he gave us courtside tickets to the game. I'm a kid freaking the fuck out. Like, wow. Recently, I tweeted him and thanked him for this kind gesture and how much it meant to me as a kid. I know that motherfucker saw it and he didn't even like the post or say anything. As I thought deeper about it, maybe he didn't even do it for me. The kid, maybe he was just trying to fuck my mom. What do you think? TLDR, send me some baby onesies. And Billy King tried fucking my mom.
I want whatever result this guy wants. My answer is whatever he thinks, whatever he wants it to be. If it's yes that Billy King was into it, then great, I'm on board. If not, yeah, I don't think it happened.
Yeah,
that is tough. I am watching. I finished. I know you get very excited when I talk about this, but I finished Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and moved on to Real Housewives of Potomac, which I believe I mentioned before has. If you remember former Maryland basketball player Juan Dixon.
Yes,
won a
I do.
championship.
Yep.
His, at the time, at the beginning of the show, ex-wife, him and his ex-wife are together on it. So Juan Dixon is on the show, which is cool. And former Sixers head coach Eddie Jordan's wife is on the show for season 1. And so they talk about Eddie Jordan a lot. And at this point, he's a coach of Rutgers. And then over the course of the first season, they start the process of divorcing. And it's like she's very upset. Eddie's not in the show. At least I haven't seen him yet. And he doesn't seem like he was a good husband. It just seems like they're just like Eddie not defending himself. I was like, well, he wasn't a good coach either. So
no, not
really
at all.
Any level. So tough hit, but it's good. It's good even when you're trying to relax, unwind with some housewives. The Sixers just keep coming back at you.
You know, I work with Tiki Barber, whose wife was on a Housewives show.
Oh, really?
It was just recently was on a Real Housewives show.
Okay. I haven't gotten to that one, but we'll get there.
We will get into the NBA Finals momentarily. The odds at DraftKings Sportsbook, the Warriors are a -150 favorite, Celtics at +130. The Warriors also +400 favorite to win the title next year, followed by the Nets at +500. The only place to bet on the NBA Finals is DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers right now make any $5 NBA bet and get $150 in free bets instantly. Oh, yeah. And also same game parlays. We're not doing our special same game parlays because the Sixers have been out of it for like fucking 6 weeks already. But you can make your own same game parlay. This NBA season, one person placed a $5 same game parlay and won over $5,000. That's what you do. You just keep adding legs. Odds get longer. Payouts get up higher. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code RTRS to make any $5 bet during the NBA Finals and get $150 in free bets instantly. It's promo code RTRS only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. So we have the Warriors versus the Celtics, and we bring on from the Light Years podcast one Sam Esfandiari, who I believe is like the connecting piece between the Ricky and Sam, I believe, is Andrew Sharp.
That is correct.
Yeah.
we both love to roast Sharp on how terrible the Wizards are.
Yeah. So, I haven't discussed this with Mike, though I am sure he is with me. I believe that given that the NBA Finals matchup, we don't often have a rooting interest, but given the NBA Finals matchup, we would like to throw all of our support to the Warriors and the Light Years community to win the finals. And we're wondering if you will accept the support of the Ricky community in these NBA Finals.
We will of course accept it because I'm a fan of just how angry your fan base gets over its own team. It brings me back to with the Warriors. I feel like there's two fan groups. There's those of us who were used to them being god awful before Steph Curry. And then there is like these spawns of Satan who turned up after the Warriors turned into a super team. And I just tend to align myself with the people who are used to negativity happening. Therefore, a natural fit for me.
All right. A dicey call, I would say. Also, are you watching the Giants beat the Phillies?
I am.
You? There's a TV behind me, so I have to watch the Phillies blow it again.
If it makes you feel better, I'm not a Giants fan. I'm an Oakland A's fan, but it's the only thing on right now. So you passively have my support, although you could say
I thought it was a pretty
jinx.
Aggressive move to be like, and here's another team of yours that sucks.
Well, are they losing right now? They were winning a minute ago.
No.
Oh.
No.
Well, I apologize for that.
So the Warriors obviously are, at this point, this generation, this era of Warriors are one of the most iconic, consequential teams of all time. And
by the way, the Phillies are up, just so you're...
Oh, they are up. They came back to... Okay, it was down. It was 5-2.
Give it time.
Okay, wow. Look at this.
It's
Wow,
6-5.
They'll blow it. It's great.
Yeah.
I just want to know, what is it like? What is it like rooting for a team who is not only good, but really good and really good for a prolonged period of time, and also like special in a way that changes basketball? It's like it's an embarrassment of riches, and I want to know how you can live with yourself.
I will say I have like a special affinity for this specific core group. Like,
Sure.
It dawned on me earlier this year when, whenever Steph, Clay, Draymond, those guys retire and go off, like, I'll like the team. I will pay attention to them, but I will not have like an emotional attachment or like the same kind of reverence, because it's that group. The only thing in Bay Area sports history, which is probably comparable, is like the 80s 49ers. And I was born in the 80s, so I don't remember any of that. You know what I mean? They are obviously iconic in basketball history, but they're also the most relevant Bay Area sports team of my lifetime. If you go, obviously the Warriors were awful before this, but, look at all the teams in the Bay Area. Most of them have been from 2010 prior. They were pretty much bad for 20 years. And that's pretty much all I've been conditioned to see in this area. Like, it's not, it's not like the Cubs with like 100 and whatever year no title streak, but it's like they weren't particularly good at anything. The biggest deal Warrior wise was We Believe for most of my life. So yeah, I don't know. It's pretty cool.
Is it like how, cause I think this happened with like Boston, New England, in that they were like a sad region of
Right.
sports until they like super weren't, and that's frustrating.
I do think there are Bay Area Boston similarities with the way that the fan bases conduct themselves.
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie on that one. There's and I think it has to do with in context of like they both the biggest city on the East Coast is New York, the biggest city on the West Coast is LA. Both Boston and San Francisco like to consider themselves the more sophisticated city, or like the more they like to consider themselves both on that level while also having kind of a provincial mindset about it, where they're also like the little guy. Like they love to play like they're the little guy when they're not really the little guy.
Right.
So I do think there's a little bit of a similarity between those two.
Because I just want to know, like, if any Philadelphia team has like such ridiculous historical success in a short amount of time, like, will I change as a person? Will I fundamentally? Will it
Yes.
alter me in a way that? Okay.
I
look forward to it.
I think it's different than like them winning. Like the Eagles won a Super Bowl, what, like 4 years ago? Is that right? No,
Yes.
something like that.
Yep.
I don't know. Time is a weird construct post-pandemic for me. So that's cool, but it's like the prolonged success thing breeds a level of fan who just thinks inevitably the breaks are going to go your way and you're going to win at the end. Like I was talking with a friend of mine. I'm 37. So I've seen most of these teams suck. People who are 21, 22 in the Bay Area have watched the Giants win 3 World Series, the Warriors do their thing, and the 49ers are the bad team of the bunch, having gone to 2 Super Bowls and been to like 5 or 6 championship games all in one decade. So like you have this like group of like 18 to 25-year-olds who just think like by virtue of being in this region, things are just going to work out in their favor.
Disgusting.
I would have to imagine of this run of teams, them winning the title this year would have to hold like a special place. From a distance, and this has been talked about a lot, the Durant ones felt weird and a little bit like less fulfilling, but to be bad, like have the worst record in the league, and then last year for it to end the way it was, and it looked like it was just sort of this unraveling, to come back and be not just be in the finals, but be the favorite for the finals, has to feel like redeeming and fun in a way that you haven't experienced in a while.
Especially since the first title happened so fast. Like they weren't, if you remember, LeBron goes back to Cleveland, and I believe Vegas had like, Cleveland, Oklahoma City with Durant and Westbrook, the Spurs, like those were the perennial favorite. The Clippers, everyone thought like the Clippers were the next team up, the Lob City Clippers. And the Warriors were just kind of like, they were a 6 seed. They were fine. They were like the Utah Jazz are right now, where you're like, they're fine, but we don't take them seriously. And then they skipped a few steps and immediately won a title. So in some ways, I would say like the first one was just like, it was an exciting high because it came out of nowhere. It wasn't the normal championship path. Like, I'll put it this way. If the 76ers end up winning a title next year, or in 2 years, given like how many years it's been just kind of like get to the second round, get here, and kind of this happen, and then finally break through, it feels a certain way because you feel like you've been contending for like 6-7 years in a row, right? The 15 Warriors, I don't think anyone thought of them as contenders. They kind of skipped a step.
Yeah. Do you think about that in a weird sense? Like the way people talk about it, of being like, and then an assistant coach had the idea to bench David Lee or Draymond Green, and like what a nuanced and incredible, thoughtful take. And it's just like, you don't think about that with any other team. You're not like, someone had the idea to start Scottie Pippen. You're not thinking about that. And really anything, it is what, looking back on it, an obvious move to play the best defender in the league and one of the best defenders of all time. How do you look back at that now? And especially since like David Lee is the archetype of his kind of player has been so deeply phased out by the league.
Ironically, by the Warriors.
Because of the Warriors.
Yeah. The Warriors basically created the high pick and roll to make that guy just unplayable.
Yeah.
I will say it's funny watching because it's like it's true. Like victors get to write history, and the Warriors winning things, they get to like create the narrative about the way it happened. When like the reality is, David Lee got hurt in training camp. He was going to start. Draymond Green ended up starting, and he played so well in that first 20 games that I think they started 17-3 or something ridiculous like that. Like it was like, I don't, it was one of those, like, I don't really know what this is, but I know this is too good to like just bench it on the fly. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how it happened. And that's kind of like, but it doesn't get written that way. The way it gets written is like, it's a master stroke. We're going to bring him off the bench, get Draymond in here. We got this guy, he's going to change the game defensively. And next thing you know, so it's kind of funny because, I mean, but isn't that the way it's been with all sports throughout history? Like whoever ends up winning, they get to write their own fan fiction on how they got there.
Sure. Yeah. Sam, you're going to have to sit there as we talk about our sponsor.
Go for it.
LL Pavorsky. You're married? Are you married? You mentioned you have a child. So we have a sponsor, LL Pavorsky Jewelers, who wants to go back in time and get you an engagement ring from LL rather than wherever you got it, because he has sold hundreds, over 260 engagement rings to Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners. We got this email earlier.
Is that a serious stat?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, it's stunning.
I gotta go look at my own sponsors and see if I've sold 260 items of anything to anyone.
Yeah, he is the first sponsor, and not just 260 items, but like fucking engagement rings. They're not cheap. He underpays.
It's not a t-shirt.
Yeah,
all of our listeners fuck.
Yeah. We got this email from Justin and Kim. Always love listening to the pod. Just wanted to reach out to see if you could give a quick shout out to Brian and Ellie for getting engaged yesterday. Brian is a big Ricky fan and obviously went to LL for the engagement ring. Thanks for keeping Sixers fandom entertaining. So congratulations to Brian and Ellie. Of course, I mentioned LL being the first sponsor of the Ricky. He treats all of our listeners like gold or platinum. When you go into a jewelry store, a lot of times it can be stressful.
Like sterling silver.
Sterling silver, right? Anything else?
Other various precious
Rose gold. You go into a jewelry store, they're all over you. Salespeople all over you. Not at LL Pavorsky Jewelers. He wants you to make an appointment so he can talk to you one-on-one. You walk in there, it's really just LL, maybe Jeffrey, his security guy, maybe one other salesperson. You're dealing with LL, the guy who has his name on the sign, been there for over 30 years. If you want to buy an engagement ring from Lee, make an appointment. Reach out to him. Lee at llpavorsky.com. 215-627-2252 is the phone number. Tweet at him at LL Pavorsky. You will not be disappointed. You'll even go back in time if you made a mistake and got an engagement ring from somebody else. LL always supports their charities, Providence Animal Center and Coded by Kids. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
Amos asked to see Alyssa's ring last night, and he was impressed.
Oh, did he really?
He did, and she showed to him, and he was impressed.
Wow.
So thank you, LL.
Sam, I only know of Warriors fandom through you. My Twitter feed does not, like...
You've curated properly, I guess.
Yeah. Why does it seem, though, like you guys are always fucking complaining about Steve Kerr? Don't you know how it could be? It just seems like...
I'm going to paint you a picture here. Okay. Your team wins a title.
Yep.
They proceed to have... They proceed to have the greatest regular season of all time.
Uh-huh.
And then you get to the finals, and in Game 7, he plays Anderson Varejao and Festus Ezeli for no goddamn reason. You were up 6 points with 4 minutes left at the end of the fourth quarter. He subs in the worst players in the series. They immediately foul LeBron twice. And next thing you know, they lose that game. It's really that simple. I think he's actually done a phenomenal job this season. This is arguably his best coaching. But for a certain segment of the fan base, they just cannot let that go.
Okay.
And I'm not going to lie to you. I egg it on. No, but like I definitely had a hard time letting that go for a while too, because it was such an egregious in such a high stakes moment. It's like that one. I really think it's as simple as it's most people can't pinpoint coaching mistakes because they just do so many like subtle small things that you don't really know why they do certain things. But that one was just so high profile that it lived with a certain segment of the fan base.
What was the logic behind it?
The logic behind it was they were tired and they weren't getting rebounds. So instead of staying small, he put the only bigs he had who were healthy.
Yeah.
Of course, it's game 7. Andrew Bogut was already injured. And I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'd rather lose with my best players in a game 7 than like needlessly overcoach it, thinking like a big man's going to help seal a rebound here or there.
Well, there's nothing coaches hate worse than giving up offensive rebounds.
Yes.
Which the Sixers did extremely well this year. Gave them up for everybody. Anybody who wanted them could have them.
And by the way, cost the Spurs a title. Like basically, like that Miami offensive rebound ended up costing the Spurs a title as well.
But it is so strange. It is so strange that even a guy like Steve Kerr, like it's now celebrated that like playing Kevon Looney this playoffs because of Steven Adams coming back into the rotation is like what a masterstroke because Kevon Looney's been good, but it's again the same kind of thing of like, well, he kind of makes us not be able to do all the things that we can do.
Makes us less dynamic on offense type of thing. Yeah.
But he has been good enough to sort of get over that. But the kind of archetype player that he is not that much. I think coaches just hate giving up offensive rebounds and are even like an innovative team like the Warriors, like Steve Kerr, with those guys around him, like still like falls back on the same Doc Rivers-y style tropes of like, well, we have to have a big man in there because big men are tall and big men get to do those things, even as like DeAndre Jordan gets busted in the pick and roll, all that stuff.
I just also think every fan base hates their coach. And then it's just like tiers of hatred. Like, do you actually hate him to the point where there's nothing he could do to ever get a compliment at you? Or do you just get annoyed with certain decisions?
Yeah. So I'm, the Warriors are the betting favorite in this at -150 at DraftKings Sportsbook. But I saw ESPN has their computer has the Celtics with an 86% chance of winning this title. I've seen Warriors media. We have a radio station out there, so I do see some of them, and I've seen them saying, "Hey, this series is going to be tough." Though I don't necessarily believe that anyone who cheers for the Warriors thinks that they're going to lose this series.
No, of course not.
Yeah, like for me, it's really hard to defense your way to a title, right? Like you need a good defense, but like your signature can't be your defense because at the end of the day, you have to be able to score. And I can't wrap my head around at the end of games trusting the Celtics over the Warriors. Like I think this will be over in 5 or 6 games, honestly. Like where do you see it? And do you have any explanation for the ESPN computer?
So the explanation I heard is those projections are going off of like what they've played minutes wise in the past. And I don't know why you would build out a projection that shows like Damian Lee playing 17 minutes a game in the finals.
Right.
Like obviously that's going to skew in Boston's favor. If your model says Tatum's playing 44 minutes and Steph's playing 33 minutes, those 11 minutes are probably going in Boston's favor, and that's going to make them the favorite by your model. I do think so. I could see a world in which it's over in 5. I could see a world in which there's close games and Boston has no idea how to close a close game.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Warriors just win that way. I could also see it going 6-7 just because both these teams love to turn the ball over.
Yeah.
They really have a fetish for it. And it's like, it's not just like, okay, it's a bad pass. It's like, I don't understand what you saw when you thought that was the pass to make type of stuff. And in general, Boston does have the type of personnel, which has always mucked up the Warriors kind of motion, beautiful game offense. So I wouldn't be surprised if it went longer. But I don't know. I am with you where I just have a very hard time seeing Boston winning 4 times. They were like a minute away from blowing it against Miami in Game 7.
I mean, less than a minute.
That was wild.
That was an embarrassing
Yeah.
level of basketball IQ from a smart team generally, of just like taking needless shots and almost giving the game away. That would have been a real delight for me to watch if Boston had blown that.
Who do you guys? Can I ask you guys a question? Who do you guys dislike more, Miami or Boston?
Definitely Boston. I dislike both of them very much. I do love Jimmy Butler, and I don't think that Sixers fans should.
You guys hate your management more for
we hate ourselves.
For Jimmy.
Yeah, why not?
Yes.
Now, what I would say though, while as a team, as an organization, I hate the Celtics more. I like more Celtics players than I like Heat players. If they were, if
you don't want Max Strus on the Sixers,
I would take Max Strus.
Well, I would take Max Strus, but I mean, like, Marcus Smart is awesome. Jaylen Brown is awesome. We're talking about Grant Williams earlier. He's awesome. Robert Williams is awesome. Like Derek White is a Mike player through and through, So there are a bunch of players, and Ime Udoka, former Sixer. There's a lot of, but like the Boston as a general concept, I think we were sort of like born to hate.
Where does Philly rank on the sports cities that hate the Celtics list?
High.
Because let me give you this context. Like, one thing that Warrior fans online love to do is like pretend like nobody is rooting for them.
This is not
the case. And it's true when you have a great team, there's a certain amount of people who hate you, but Boston has a lot of teams who hate them for historic reasons that go back way before Steph Curry ever existed. And I was trying to make that case where I was like, all right, everyone knows about the Lakers-Celtic rivalry, but it's like, I think every city on the East Coast has a rivalry with the Celtics on some level.
Yeah, I think the Knicks would think that they do, but they haven't had too many like playoff showdowns, whereas the 80s were just riddled with Sixers-Celtics. I grew up just like knowing like that. And the Sixers being like too often the third team in like a Celtics-Lakers, going back and forth type dynasties. And then the Celtics have just like totally punked the Sixers in many ways over the last 7-8 years. Although the fact that Al Horford makes the finals does raise his contract for next season. Thank you, Elton Brand, for signing him to that contract. And if they do win the finals, they win the championship, then his contract goes up even more. So that is a small carrot. But if they win the finals, that will change me in a way that I'm not prepared for. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to live in that world. The Warriors to me I get frustrated by the Warriors sometimes. I mean, I love watching them play, but I have like this sort of disease in me where I just want like the little guy. I want someone to just like shoulder check the little guy so he goes flying into like the 18th row, and just like when you're rooting for the other team, which I have sometimes against the Warriors, like it's so frustrating to watch them to play against them because they're so good and so fast and so smart, and you're cutting things off, and you cut like 90% of them off, and all of a sudden Draymond dribble handoff and he's just like at the rim like very easily, and so it's an incredibly frustrating thing. So watching Steph do his thing, to me especially, is I just want someone to like just vault him out of the stadium. But other than that, I felt that way about like Isaiah Thomas and stuff too. It's similar to Trae Young, same thing. I want little guys to get fucking, shouldn't be here. You should be allowed to get, some punishment should happen.
Last thing, I've said on the pod that I think Steph Curry is underrated historically. Like I think, Perkins was talking about him passing Magic. I could very easily make an argument for Steph Curry being a top 5 or 7 player of all time. And I think the frustrating thing for me is people say that the NBA Finals MVP doesn't matter. It does matter. The fact is that he just should have won the Iguodala one, and he should have that one. And like winning an NBA Finals MVP, if you win 4 titles and you're the best player on the team, you should win one of the fucking MVPs. But I think he probably got robbed of one, even though I love that Iguodala one. Where do you see him historically, Curry?
I mean, he's the best player in NBA history under 6'6". Every player who you could make a case for being better than him are 6'6" or taller. It's like, well, okay, he's not as good as Michael Jordan. He's not as good as LeBron James. He's not as good as like Kareem, Shaq, like some of these guys, and they're all massive. So where does that put him all time? I mean, I think he has a case for top 10, particularly if they win, because I don't think this will be the end of this team's run. I think they're going to have a chance the next 2 to 3 years with the roster that they have, and even if they like decide to actually pull the trigger and trade someone, like they're in a position that they should be competing for the West for the next 3 years. So let's say they win 2 more, let's say they end up with 5 and we have this, like, he won the 1, then he had the 2 KD years, and then they fell down and then they won again. I mean, now you're talking about a decade of this guy being kind of in the mix every year. And that's kind of why I think he is this generation's Magic Johnson. Like, that's kind of the most appropriate comp for him, just because, look, Magic played with another top 5 all-time player. He played with consistently like all-star casts. But anyone who watched those teams understood like Showtime, the entire style, everything that made that team unique was because of him. It wasn't because of Kareem Skyhook or like, James Worthy penchant for big games or whatever it may be. If the Warriors end up, going to, let's say, 9 finals, and let's say they win 4 or 5 of them or something like that, like that's, and Steph's at the center of it. And like, yes, Clay will probably have been there the entire time, and same with Draymond, but it's like you have KD sometimes, you have Andrew Wiggins other times, all this stuff. Like he ends up having a Magic Johnson-esque case where the farther away you get from it, the more it becomes about like he led the team the entire way. And we forget about, because like, can you tell me right now how many finals MVPs Magic Johnson has? Which ones he wanted in, which ones he didn't?
Yeah, no, I would guess he has 2, but I have no idea. And I wouldn't remember which ones he has it in. So, and by the way, like the KD thing, like this is, I do this sort of logic all the time, and I know it's frustrating for people, but like you take Durant off, and in his exact place you put Harrison Barnes, and they won a title. And in his exact place you put Andrew Wiggins, and theoretically they win a title.
The Wiggins one's kind of a heat check if you think about it.
Yeah,
like
it
universally
really
regarded as like the worst big contract in the NBA. Who would want this guy? And then like a year and a half later, he looks excellent. Like honestly, I thought they were going to trade him. I thought like the entire genius behind it was like, all right, we're going to make him look good, and then we're going to find a sucker. We're going to trim Sacramento or something like that. But it's gotten to a point where like I think they might keep him around for a while because he's kind of good for them.
Yeah, I mean, the lesson is like Andrew Wiggins as your best or second best player is not going to work. You have to be so good to be a top 2 or 3 player on a contending team to be that efficient, and he had to rework his game to be a role player. And so he's not the number 1 pick. Like he's not the guy that you build a team around. He's just like, oh, I'm super athletic and I'm willing to like defend my ass off for this team, and I can move off ball with these like iconic shooters that like if you put him around people that aren't Steph Curry and Draymond and Clay, then like he wouldn't be as good, but he's accepted his role, and that's huge, and that's hopefully what like Tobias will do. But
that's the funny thing. It's like no matter how well Wiggins plays, every other team still looking at it, it's like, but would he do that for us?
Yeah, for sure. And that's the benefit of this Warriors team is that like so many guys, we were talking earlier about like Matisse on this team. Matisse on the Sixers is just not that effective. But Matisse on the Warriors, if he could just like do what Gary Payton is doing and have a little bit more like length and anticipation, those kinds of things, like he could absolutely be a more helpful player because of the kinds of ways that Steph and those guys clean up their holes and stuff. My last question.
Yeah.
James Wiseman sucks, right? Like he sucks. Like he's not going to be a good player, and they should have traded him.
Mike's been saying this for
he totally sucks, and they should have traded him. And they're like they got way too cocky, and were like we could actually not trade him, and he could be good, but he's not, and they should have drafted LaMelo, and that was a terrible pick, right?
The army of like teenagers with player avies have like beaten me to death to where I will not give Wiseman takes publicly. But I'm more
I've been there.
I'm more in your camp. I'm more in your camp than the we're gonna turn Wiseman into Giannis camp.
Jesus.
The funniest thing on earth was
I didn't even know that was a camp.
Oh, Wiseman's first training camp, like this was peak where the team is so beloved they could get the media to say anything.
That's
the coaches are going out there. It's like, yeah, he's reminding me of Giannis, reminding me of Embiid. I'm like,
oh my god, he's not good at anything. There's not a thing he's good at. He's just tall.
Really good at being big and athletic. So,
he's just tall and athletic and long. Like he's just not. And he's not, and he wants
my
to be
whole
jerked.
thing
like,
is
that's not what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's my whole thing. I wish he wanted to be a center, but I think he wants to be Kevin Durant, and he's not Kevin Durant because
really
there's only one KD.
Yeah.
So,
Process Pup, who is his college teammate, is better than him and will be better than him. It's not good. They should have traded him. They should have traded him for Miles Turner a long time ago.
Yeah. Are they missing anything? Like, by the way,
No.
This is the most Warriors thing ever. They wanted to start David Lee, and Draymond Green beats him out.
Yeah.
They get James Wiseman because we need a big, and Looney ends up being the one.
Otto Porter becomes like extremely helpful. That's the thing that the Sixers just haven't happened is like the Warriors have gotten guys primarily because people want to play with Steph and want to live in the Bay or whatever, and they've made those players into like really good, helpful, minimum salary guys, and the Sixers just like that has not happened. It just hasn't happened with Drummond for like half a season, but it wouldn't have worked in the playoffs. And like the Warriors are out here just like everything is cashing in and making up for like a really horrible mistake drafting James Wiseman.
I mean, on the flip side, do you not have faith that Morey can kind of find some of those guys next on? Because like the thing is, he traded like every useful non-big contract player for James Harden. You can't find a Seth Curry and like that sort of stuff kind of on the fly in that case. Give him another summer, maybe.
Hopefully. So I've defended him in that, but I would say that this is a crucial offseason for his
the most important in Sixers history.
No, for him. Like for his legacy can't be I built the Rockets and then I went and got them when they were fucking bad. Like if the Harden trade, the Simmons situation was a bad one, but if he ends up giving Harden a contract and he looks terrible and isn't able to like piece together a roster here, then this will be the final taste in people's mouths for a while. And like, it's going to be hard to recover, And I think this is a really I give him not a pass, but I think he had a nearly impossible situation to deal with this year in terms of like getting players because of what Simmons did, but he's not getting like 3 more years to figure it out.
No, I mean, and the Chris Paul Russell Westbrook trade is one of the worst trades in history. And the Harden trade that he received him in Houston is one of the best trades in history. So like things have worked out for Daryl, and like he's largely. But
don't we give him a pass on the Chris Paul one?
People certainly do.
Yeah.
But he's the guy, and he made the trade, and it worked out like shit. And so whether he pushed back enough or didn't, or pushed back to his owner or his player or whatever,
all I know is like after that happened, he grew a massive struggle beard. Like there were signs that he wasn't in
he
favor
came on our
of it.
podcast.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
He looked like he was hurting. That's all I'm gonna say.
Look, it's very exciting that you have a team that you assume is always going to win and will find a way. And that is not relatable and it's not likable, but I do want you to win this series and save me and everyone the torture of a Boston.
I'm glad
Celtics
Larry
championship.
Bird tormented your family in the 80s. Therefore, you feel no choice but to root for the Warriors.
I mean, all of that. All of it.
Sam's podcast is Light Years, which you can find where you get podcasts. He's on Twitter at Sam Esfandiari, and the podcast is on Twitter at Light YRS. Who has at Light Years?
I don't know, but it is claimed. It is claimed that we didn't decide to misspell it for effect.
It's a great. I love our pod name, but Light Years is a hilarious pod name. I love it. I think it's a great name.
I mean, you got to lean into the reason your team does things they do. Like you can be embarrassed by the fact that the owner took a victory lap about how smart he was for not trading the picks, even though none of those kids are playing in the rotation at all, or you could lean into it and become as arrogant as you can possibly be.
Anything we're missing that you'd like to? And by the way, Sam obviously has to do his own pod all the time now, so I appreciate your time doing this. We've often talked about like how exhausting the playoffs is for us because we do a podcast after each game. We normally do 2 times a week, but a pod after each game. But we've never had a last past the second round. Like I can't imagine having to do it as much as you do.
I will say, like, while you're right, I'm looking forward to like not doing it all the time. It's like it is exciting because like this is you know what sucks? Doing a pod after they play the Magic November 17th. Like, what do you want me to say? It's like, oh man, Steph really didn't play hard. Is this going to affect their title chances? Like, no, it's the Orlando Magic. You know, like that type of stuff is far harder than this.
Just unrelatable complaints from the guy who's just going to win another championship. What a nice thing.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
See ya. And shout out to Andy Lopez, who has @Lightyears, just some guy with 380 followers. So good luck to the Warriors, who are our team officially for the next couple of weeks, and the first game is Thursday night. So
we were cursing them. This is a curse.
Yeah,
this is
bad news. Bad news.
I don't know why he accepted it. I have no idea. I would have denied it. I advised him on denying us.
Do you have an official pick for the series?
I'll say Warriors in 6.
Yep.
Between 6 or 7, I would say. Boston's just really good, and they're long and they're physical, and they play their asses off. And there's just a bunch of guys that can hit shots on the team. And if Grant Williams hitting shots and Al Horford's hitting shots, and they can play like a Peyton Pritchard this series because Golden State's not that big. They're not gonna go like 1-on-1 type things. It's gonna be a good series. I wish it was Miami so I could just watch and not be invested. But now I'm like, it's gonna be a good series, and I'm gonna be invested. And if Boston wins, I'm gonna be upset.
It'll be crushing. Yeah. All right, we will talk to you. What's today? I don't even know. Thursday. We'll talk to you. No, Wednesday. We'll talk to you this weekend. Are you done with TTP?
Yeah, Dub Nation.